Get ready.
Hi, welcome back to Trancing in the Sheets. My name's Kaz Riley, and this is the Hypno247 Live Network. And I've got a really wonderful guest today. I have Greg Beckett, the motivational hypnotist, who has, of course, his own amazing show on the network, which is To Get Unstuck. But today he's with me, and he's not stuck anywhere. You know, we're talking about coming out today. And, you know, for many people, that can mean many different things, you know, as hopefully we move forwards towards a world in which people don't even have to come out. They can just be themselves and whoever they are. But we're still there. And certainly in the past, it was a big thing. So, Greg, welcome to the show. And thank you for sharing with us today. We do appreciate it.
Hi.
Hi.
What are we talking about?
Coming out. Have you done that?
Who? Me? Well, if anybody doesn't know, right? Gay, maybe bi-curious a little, which is not typically what people hear. They hear straight bi-curious.
Mm-hmm.
Just to open up opportunities. You never know.
Absolutely. Well, I guess
right?
with that, that's either way, whether you're gay bi-curious or straight bi-curious.
Yeah, but people wouldn't have any concept. But people wouldn't have a concept of someone saying gay bi-curious, because it's backwards to their typical thinking if they're heteronormative thoughts, right? And you know, it opens up to more fun. Oh my gosh, fun, sex, fun. What? Ooh, I thought it was just procreative activity.
God
as some
forbid,
learned when I'm growing up or tried to be taught, not necessarily me, but I've heard that, you know. Yeah.
So I know, I mean, my hope is that one day we get to a place where, you know, people don't have to come out. I don't think anybody should have to declare how they identify sexually, simply because hopefully we should get to a point where it just doesn't matter.
Okay,
but
okay.
We're not there yet. We're a long, long way from that, where because we're still in a world that's heteronormative, then the assumption is that's the norm. What I hope to is that where it doesn't, you know, whatever you are is the norm, and you can talk about it if you want to, but you shouldn't have to come out as being something different to the norm, if that makes sense.
Now, wait a minute. Okay, I understand that. I understand what you're talking about. But from my, and I can say instead of but, and from my experience today, right? It sometimes matters. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're at a cashier, when someone's checking you out, your groceries and stuff. It doesn't matter what their sexual preference is or anything else. But like if I'm at a party or something, sometimes I'm curious, not about, okay, that it matters in my life, but it does matter sometimes, like, oh, so who are you dating? Or I'm married, oh, to a man or a woman, right? So when before, if someone said they were married, you automatically knew they were married to a woman if it was a man, or married to a man if it was a woman. Now, because I am in that middle of that, when I was growing up, it wasn't, you know, legal or any of that stuff. And now it is. So I still kind of go, oh, married. Okay, I'm just making the assumption if it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man. I mean, I'm learning, even as a gay man going, or bi-curious, going, okay, so what are you married to? Which, you know.
Yeah.
But it also, look, I look at race as a culture. Like if you're Asian, Black, Latino, mixed Latino like me or whatever, there's cultural things that go on in the dynamics. But that's the same thing with sexuality and being gay or bi. There's cultural things that if you're understanding that you get to play with in conversation and stuff, and we're not talking about innuendo or anything, there's just certain things that come along with being that. So if you don't know, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I think what I mean by that is not that people shouldn't come out. It's just that where it's just so normal that people could be absolutely anything. They could identify, and we know that can be fluid as well, you know, as people change. That's what I'm getting at, is that at the moment we still have this where if you're not what seemed to be the social norm, as in heterosexual, then somehow you have to declare that. Where I think if we could make the assumption, if we get to the point where the assumption is that you know, anybody could be interested in anyone, anybody, then that's what that becomes the norm. So then what we're doing is we're not having to come out. People could just ask the question, you know, what are you into?
And they can be okay to say what it is.
Exactly.
Because I had the opposite experience even today with someone that I knew that didn't declare, so to speak, or come out. So I didn't know what to say to them.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Because I have my intuition or feeling, but their response was, I shouldn't have to. And I'm like, right. But then also at the same time, how do we grow in our relationship or friendship or whatever it is if you're not sharing that, and I don't know if you're closed off? And why wouldn't you tell me if it's no big deal?
Exactly. And I think, you know, when we look at this, I mean, we'll talk about your story with this in a second, because, you know, it's an interesting thing. What I've noticed is the change of, you know, I have a 15-year-old son where, you know, within his peer group, within his friends, within his school, it's a big school, you know, it's quite acceptable for people to be bisexual, to be gay, to be straight, to be transgender, you know, that it's accepted. I went to a school of a similar size, and apparently there was only one gay person in the whole of the school. Now, we know that, you know, however many years ago that was, I mean, I'm 46, I left there when I was 16. We know that that cannot possibly have been the case. But
let me ask you this.
That's
was it a gay man? Was it a gay boy?
It was a gay man, yes.
And just so you know, because in that time and in that dynamic, because he was out, right, at that time, he knew who was gay but not out, because they all came to visit him.
Oh, yeah, probably. But that's the difference, isn't it, over those kind of 30 years, is that, you know, now at that age, you know,
right,
it's perfectly fine. But, you know,
they have boyfriends and girlfriends, you know, being gay or bisexual, and then they take them home and go to dances and stuff like that. And sometimes I still go, wow, okay.
Yeah, which is cool.
Me, I go, okay, cool.
But, you know, back all those years ago in Texas, it wasn't like that, was it?
Oh, growing up in Texas? I guess if you were to ask me the question, when did I come out, right? I would have to answer to myself or to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was a sweet kid. I was a kind kid, which that doesn't necessarily mean gay when kids are sweet and kind, but it does register sometimes as weak to the other kids. So when there's the hierarchy going on in the school grounds and stuff, if you're a sweet kid, you know, you're going to get it. And so I got some of that. My parents are great, except with my family, as much as they loved me, I was different. I had a lot of older siblings, brothers, and I was the youngest, and I didn't fit in the same mold.
Yeah.
As the rest of them. And it was interesting because my parents loved me, there's no doubt. And my dad would say, you know, you could be anything you want to be in this world, but you should just be more like everybody else. It makes life easier.
Yeah.
That was my gift that I was given, which says a lot of things as I grow up about how maybe I wasn't right or enough or whatever it is. But they're also, parents are trying to protect themselves.
Yes.
And protect their having to deal with things, because they go to work and they work all day and they have to do this and do that. And then they have this kid, you're right. So when I heard all these things, I didn't hear necessarily any gay positive stuff. You know, look at that gay guy, or look at that. Oh, even though my family did have a lesbian couple that were friends, but that was her.
There's always a couple of great aunts in the closet, literally.
Right, it was their best friend. It was their best friend. They lived with their best friend and stuff like that, and they were okay with that. Or most women had a gay guy that did their hair, hopefully, right? But he's okay. He's all right. So for me, it was fear of acknowledging to myself. Because if I acknowledge to myself, then I can't lie to everybody else, because I'm not a liar. So I was a late bloomer. And coming out to myself was more after my mom passed away and I moved to New York, and I was in my early 20s. I didn't really date or anything. Mm-hmm. But was I maybe doing a little something here and there and still not admitting to myself? Isn't that what we hear from a lot of people that are married now or whatever, and whatever it is, it's fine. I went to New York and then moved to California, and I just became more and more myself. But to actually come out to my family, there was always a distance because I wasn't being honest. And this is, for me. And when I moved to New York, my dad had this thing which was really sweet. It was especially when long distance cost money, right? To phone long distance. Mm-hmm. We would talk every Sunday. I was like, I might want to talk to you on a Tuesday if I have something good. I might want to talk to you. Can I call when I want to talk? Not because we have to call on, And so there was a lot of me individuating from my family. And there was a time for maybe a year that we didn't talk very often. And then we started speaking again. I was in my mid-20s. We started speaking again a lot more often. But I'd cry a lot after talking to them. Mm-hmm. Because I felt like the unspoken was a lie. And if I'm going to be a part of my family, I don't want to be a part of it with an unspoken. And then if the truth comes out, I lose them again, or I'm not right for them, or whatever it is. So I know the date exactly, not the exact date like in date, but I know it was the day that Rodney King trial was over and people started rioting and looting in Los Angeles. And I was in the middle of it, but I didn't know that was actually happening. And I called my dad, who lived with my aunt at the time. I put them both on. I got tired of crying is what it was, Mm-hmm. And I put them both on the phone. I said, here's the deal. They said, okay, well, we love you, I called I have five brothers. And then I called the next one, put his wife on the phone too. I took everybody down the line. And people are like, oh, really? Oh. And one was like, finally. One of my sister-in-laws says, finally. But from there, we could have honest conversation and either be that family that I needed or not. Mm-hmm. And luckily, they're cool with it. Most, everybody has their little twerks or whatever. But with that said, that's an easy journey for some, because I know people who, when their parents found out and they were like 14 or 15, their parent took a baseball bat to them and all they could get out of the house with was a backpack with their school stuff and clothing that was on them, and had to go live with friends and not go home again.
Oh, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's that, but it was like that then. That's the thing, back then it was like, and I know sometimes.
Wait. Yeah. It depends on where you live and who your parents are.
Absolutely.
Who your family is. And here's the thing is, I talk about fear a lot because it's the fear of the result of an action or a statement that we don't know. It's not the actual doing of it, right? And so even though there's some people that I have good friends that have husband and wife, that hetero couple that have gay friends, straight friends, that have everything, and they have a son. And the son, if he were to say they're like, okay. If he says he's gay, okay. If he says he's straight, okay. And it's worked well for them because they're very open in their conversation. I also have some friends that they don't talk about it. They're very open. They have gay friendship, but they don't have open conversation. So I have other people that don't talk at all. And the challenge is those that are open with conversation, the kid knows where they stand. Even if it's just demonstrating but never speaking about it, they don't know where they stand. It's still a fear because they've never said, oh, we don't mind. We don't, even though they're demonstrating that they have, but they're hearing from other locations that it's not right. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or is it a little tricky here?
No, I think it very much does depend on, how, what's said within the home, isn't it? This is, it's even, this even goes even to, how comfortable families are with sexuality and sex in general as a topic of conversation. And this is part of that, isn't it? Whereas And I think it's what you grew up hearing as well, isn't it? And how people are talked about. So I guess a good example of that is, you know, I there was times when I heard things like, well, you know, I don't know, so-and-so, he's gay. Oh, but he's a really nice guy. Well, why, you know, the inference is, isn't it, is that, you know,
Nothing bad.
yeah, but actually, you know, whereas I guess if you talk about these things much more openly, I know with my own children, I mean, you've seen me with my children, you've met my children, so you know that they're just accepting that people are people, and you can have you have a relationship. It's about the relationship. It depends on who that relationship is with. Is the important thing is about whether or not it's a loving, caring one, a nurturing one, and anything else is fairly irrelevant. And you know, so I think it's that, isn't it? It's very much about what you hear and what you see, even if there's nothing negative said. Sometimes about it not being positive,
Right.
causes a lot of fear.
The neutral isn't the same either. You know, being neutral doesn't work either.
No.
Because then people will build up whatever the kids will build up, or young adults, or whatever they want in their heads. I mean, I know some people who may be in their 40s or 50s that I know, but they don't tell anybody.
No.
And it's something that's always there. Even though it's nobody's business, because they're not comfortable with it, it affects their emotions.
Well, it's that feeling of hiding, isn't it? So
right.
If they were comfortable with it and not talking about it, that's an entirely different thing to being uncomfortable in your own skin. And we know, whatever the reason that caused that discomfort, you know, as therapists, that's an issue, isn't it? Because it's about self-acceptance.
Yeah, okay. The phrase for a lot of 12 steps and stuff is, you're only as sick as your secrets, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, once I just started being me, someone might ask you, hey, are you, yeah, you know, and that was about it, you know, because I was accepting, and I knew I had my family, or I had my friends, and I had to come out to my friends, even though some of them already knew, you know, kind of like I'm in the position now for other people. And I was able to grow in other ways. I could start focusing on other things other than that. Now, interesting enough, I had such a good friend of mine's, I met his mother, and she was visiting, and we were sitting outside on the porch talking, and I said something about being gay or whatever, and she says, why do you guys always have to bring that up in your conversation? You're gay, so what? And I thought for a second. I said, wait a minute. I said, you're Jewish. She said, yeah. I said, and when you meet new people, you might throw Yiddish words, that thing which is sweating or something, in your conversation to see if they respond, right? Mm-hmm. She goes, yeah. I said, so do we, to know if we're okay with, if it's okay to trust you, because we grew up having to find out in underlying ways if we can trust someone, or if you're going to be a friend or an ally or whatever you want to call it. So just like you check to see if anybody's, you know, anti-Semitic, we're trying to find out if you're with us or not. And it's small little things like that. And then she was like, oh.
Yeah. So you obviously went through your family, so you know, kind of, but, and I guess that's the, you know, and then since then, did anything change, or was it that you just felt more comfortable, or did they treat you differently, or?
I don't feel like my family treated me differently. Mm-hmm. I think maybe there's some people that might have some issue because they do. It doesn't make me love them any less or any more, you know, it just is. I think if you trust yourself, I think this whole journey for me, not just about sexuality, but about growth and hypnosis and becoming more myself, is about trust. And I think once you trust yourself and who you are, it doesn't matter if you have those people or not, because they're on their own journey, especially as an adult. I mean, you want to have them, but a lot of people don't. And that's okay too, because you make your family.
Well, I think there is a lot with that, isn't there? You know, as we get older, we accept sometimes that other people aren't accepting, but that means we don't have to accept that, as in inviting that into our lives, isn't it? You know, that.
Or you accept it and you just kind of say, I've accepted that. That's who they are. I love them. Whatever.
Yeah. And it's that realizing that belongs to them and not to us, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's
all of this. You know, it's. I always find it fascinating when, especially, I'll talk about lawmakers in the U.S. They vote against LGBTQ things. They vote against all of these things, and they have their wife and kids. Hey, great, and they're so staunch against it, and then suddenly they have a boyfriend. You know, come on.
But that's often the way, isn't it? You know, that is often the way where you find the people that are the most opposed and resistant, you know, are often are the ones that are living in most fear, because that's what causes that, isn't it? It's, you know, that you know, we could say they're bad people or whatever it is, but actually they're living in a place of all-consuming fear of what other people
I can imagine it. You know, I wanted to say I can't imagine, but I can. And my heart goes out to people that just can't be themselves. And there are countries that people are killed for being themselves.
Absolutely.
And I'm fortunate that I live somewhere that I can be myself.
Yeah. And this is, you know, and actually that is a fairly recent thing, that you can be yourself. I mean, even, you know, in the States and even here in the UK, you know, it was either illegal or a mental illness to be homosexual, wasn't it? You know, I mean, or
bisexual or trans or polyamorous or all of these things, though communes were okay.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, still here in terms of polygamy, as in multiple marriage, that's still not allowed.
Well, not here either. I
don't know over there, but yeah, it's that. But still classed as, you know, until very, you know, really, it's only really the last 20 years that things have moved on in a positive way, I think, for anybody that isn't identifying
heteronormative.
Right.
But the thing is, within those heteronormative sexual relationships and bonds, there's some things that go on behind closed doors that some people go, ooh, oh, really? You know, Well, I want to say this. I read there was an article about someone transitioning from male to female in China, and they're taking on a law because they were let go from their job. And I was reading some of the comments, and there's always the positive comments and the negative comments. And a lot of the negative comments talked about it being that people wanting to transition, it's a mental illness. And I thought about that, and I'm like, okay, let's say it is. Let's pretend that it is or isn't. Either way, why can't you just let them be happy being their mental illness? What does it bother you that they want to be something else? And it makes them happy. Okay.
The mind kind of boggles, doesn't it? You know, when we look at that, because it's not that long ago since that was here, you know, or there, you know, and now.
Well, it's the same thing everywhere. I just used that article because of that.
Yeah, but it's still like that over there, you know, as people are kind of. But still people are let go of their jobs. It's just now, you know, often they're not let go because of that. You know, it is because of that. But
well, they can here now. Again, it was illegal to, and now they can again, from my understanding, especially like in government jobs and stuff, due to our current political standings.
Yes. Yeah.
Climate.
It's scary, but this is kind of what makes me sad, because really, although if you look at a lot, you know, things are definitely moving forwards, but when you look at some of the attitudes from people who have lived very heteronormative lives, you know, that are kind of lived in that bubble where they've never had to deal with any of this stuff, they've never had to really think about it. where, you know, you're hearing all the jokes at the moment about all the different sexualities and sexual identities that, you know, so as if, you know, I don't know, that suddenly they've never actually been there. It's just that nobody's ever spoken about them. You know, this is the ridiculous thing. And by speaking about them, of course, that helps to start to normalize them. But actually, you know, when you look at how uncomfortable that makes a lot of people, you can see how all of this has been, you know, people have lived in that space of fear, that place of fearing what other people would think, fearing that they might lose their job, fearing of the assumptions that, you know, people would make. And some of the things that people say, which are so inappropriate, you know, like, oh my God, can you imagine, you know, I just think about them in bed together and I feel really sick. Well, don't think about people being in bed together. You know, the same is the opposite.
When people talk about their parents, I don't want to think about my parents having sex. Well, you got here, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were born, right? And you know what? If I would like, I hope whoever it is having a good time.
Yeah.
Whether it's my parents or straight couple, gay couple, whatever. I hope everybody's just having a good time and being kind and happy and laughing in the middle of it.
Yeah. And interestingly, I think, although, you know, gay men and lesbian women have both, you know, had a lot more, you know, both have had a lot of, I'm trying to word, persecution, I think probably is the word. But at some level, you often find that that lesbians were more accepted than gay men were. And it's...
But though, this is interesting. I find that mothers accept their boys easier than their girls, and fathers accept their girls easier than their boys.
Quite possibly.
I mean, that's just what I've seen or sensed or felt. When there is some sort of dynamic that one of them's having a hard time of the parents, it's usually the same sex parent.
Absolutely. But in society, if you look at how, just to take the example of straight men, if you look at how straight men who often have an issue with gay men or homosexuality, but then don't apply the same thing to women, somehow, you know, the idea of two women together,
they like that because they think they can get in the middle of it.
but it's interesting then, isn't it, how we get that kind of double standard almost. I'm not saying that's the same for everybody, but that's certainly something where, you know, I see people kind of almost saying how you know, the idea of two men together kind of really turns their stomach, but then they're fine with two women. And then this is when I say to them, yes, but they're not doing it for you to watch. This isn't for you. You know, this is about two people still being together and enjoying each other of the same sex. And it doesn't matter whether they're men or women, because you're not going to be watching either of them. And it's kind of like...
Yeah, right. But you just gave the example of men, straight men going, oh, gay men, gay women. You could do the exact same example of women, straight hetero women going, women together? But man, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's again goes back to that whole thing, like family and coming out. Which one really has? Usually, it's. I know a lot of women that said, "I wish one of my sons was gay," or they had daughters. I wish I had a gay son too. They just because they see the bonds and things and the kindness a lot of times that come with that.
Yes.
And also, you know, in the end, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to die.
Well, this is it.
Just trying to find the happiness in between birth and death.
Well, this is it. And this is kind of, you know, when I say, or I hope that we get to a point where you can just be you. You know, people can just be themselves wherever they happen to be at that point in their life as well, where they can declare what their sexuality if they wish to. But then, you know, and people can be asked about it without fear that something bad will happen if they tell the truth, which is the other thing, isn't it? And, you know, that's kind of my hope that we get there, hopefully by educating people and, you know, getting various churches and things on board as well. I mean, I know this is going to take an awfully long time, but, you know, we've got to work towards that, haven't we? Where coming out should be, you know, if somebody wants to declare that, it should be a joyous thing of of real joy that maybe everybody then does, because it's something, there is no kind of norm. And in the same way that you just, I don't know, you declare it when you're a certain age, I don't know, but
I love the question that people ask. It was a good question that came around for a long time online and things like that people would say to someone that's maybe a hetero person that doesn't understand gay or whatever, and they say, when did you decide that you like, to a man, when did you decide that you liked women?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I always liked women. So couldn't it be possible that they didn't make the decision either to like men? It just, I always thought that way.
Well, it's this strange idea, isn't it, that it's a decision.
Oh yeah. Do you think everybody wants to decide to be like persecuted and killed for what they like? Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that because they might kill me. Yeah, I'll sign up for that.
Yeah, or when they talk about, the gay gene or genetics, or, as if, again, the inference of that is that somehow that's a faulty thing, isn't it? Rather than just being a thing, To
get more art in the world? Or not, because that's also a little bit stereotypical, but stereotypes come out of some things.
They do.
Now, here's the other one is, oh shoot, I just lost it. We were talking about, what was the last thing you said? You were talking about it was bad or good, right? Oh, shoot.
Genes. Okay. So we're talking about genes.
Yeah, we were talking about that, but I had a thought that went away.
Oh, well, it might come back. If it does, just shoot it out now.
I will.
Don't know. Closet, just shoot it out. So, but no, it's true. I think hopefully we'll get to that point, but we're nowhere near it yet. So if somebody was watching this and they're at a point in their life where I guess it's very, very individual, but they at the point of admitting this to themselves, so maybe they're not ready to tell anybody else yet. Circumstances within each family would be very, very different. But if they're having that realization and they're putting that label on, because the thing is as well, young children, regardless whether they're heterosexual, gay, bisexual, anything, don't grow up thinking, all right, I'm heterosexual. They just become aware that they've become aware of who they're attracted to. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Right. So if you were kind of, there's the younger you. So the younger you, let's do it this way. So the younger you who became aware of who he was attracted to, what would you tell him now? If you could kind of give him a piece of advice, what would you tell that younger you?
Oh, shoot. That's really a challenge, because the younger me that I think about was in a different situation in those times. So that's a tricky, if I were talking to a younger me that was younger now in 2019.
Okay, let's do it that way. That's probably more helpful to people, isn't it?
Right. Not back to the kid that was there. I would say, take your time, whatever you're comfortable with, and explore. Explore what you like. Explore things that you enjoy, whether it's, oh my gosh, you want to paint, or, and I know this is not about sex, it is about sexuality. Maybe they have that, they want to do things that are not straight boy, or maybe it's a girl that wants to try out for the wrestling team, or, whatever it is, try it out. Start expressing yourself little by little in your comfortable ways and see what happens. And if you don't feel safe, take care of yourself. Because maybe you are in a family or a town that is not accepting. And the real thing is about finding your tribe or your people, and it might be little by little, because you still have to survive. And the other part of it is maybe you're already in college and away from home. So go to some of the straight gay alliance things, or you got to be yourself for your tribe to find you. If you're pretending to be yourself, if you're pretending to be something else, you're going to hang out with people that are something else. Like if you're, I like the analogy, I'll say we're fruit. I'm an orange, but I'm pretending to be an apple because apple is normal. There aren't very many oranges. But every time a banana or orange they wave to me, I ignore them because I want to hang out with the apples because they're more accepted. But the apples think like, there's something wrong with you, but we like you, okay? You look like an apple. You act like an apple, but you smell like an orange, right? You still have some citrus coming off of you. So until finally you're so tired of pretending to be something else that you become your orange, and all the oranges, you had fun with them and the other fruit, right? And the apples are like, we knew there was something. If we just knew you were an orange, then we could treat you like an orange. We didn't know you were an orange. Right? Does that make sense? That whole...
It does. And then the thing is, of course, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm an orange. It's cool to be an orange. It feels good to be an orange.
You know, you open them up, there's spray citrus all over, they smell good, you know.
And the thing is, often the apples, unless there's a bad apple in that, you know, in that group, the apples go, well, why didn't you say you're an orange? We like oranges.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. And I remembered that thought that drifted away before.
Okay.
We talk about gay parents, you know, gay couples having parents, being parents, either bringing life in or adopting and stuff. And like, especially adoption, if you think about, well, who would want, you know, I don't want gay people adopting kids. Well, why don't you take them in then? Number one, at least they'd have someone loving, caring to take care of them.
Whoa, stop. There's no at least. It's that
exactly.
They have.
Right, they would have.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing, see my vocabulary sometimes too. The other thing is they say, well, we don't want them raising them to be gay. Right? And I go like this, I'm like, who created us? Me. It was straight people.
Raising them to be gay, but that really hits home the education that still needs to occur.
Right.
Yeah. And
you got what I'm saying. It's like, where do we come from?
Yeah.
You think we just come from gay people? No, we come from intercourse, and you know, and until the last 30 years, it was typically mom and dad made a gay kid, you know.
Yeah, you know, until the advent of IVF and sperm donation and you know all kinds of stuff. And but it's that thing of, you know, this idea of raising somebody to be gay is, unless they are gay, and then you would hope that they were raised to be gay, because then they can just be themselves. But it's it's not like raising somebody to be religious or to, you know, it's not a choice, is it? You know, it's about how somebody is. So, but that's back to what we were saying before, where lots of people, there are people in this world that still think it is a decision, like, you know, they, you know, or that, you know, people that are bisexual are just greedy and can't make their minds up, you know, all these ridiculous things that
well, there's some straight men, totally straight men, that in their life they've tried something with a guy and they're like, oh, I don't like it.
Yeah.
They knew.
Yeah.
Okay, so what?
Yeah, and interestingly, often we'll follow that up with, but I'm not gay. And we're like, no, you just experimented. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Sadly, we're out of time.
We're probably over time.
Probably over time, but that's okay. It's us, you know. So thank you so much, Greg. I mean, just tell everybody quickly about your show. I know, you know, about Time to Get Unstuck, also about hypnosisla.com.
Okay, so you can find me on the Hypno247Live Network, where you found Kaz. And my show is Time to Get Unstuck, which is about moving forward. So with my guests, we pick a word which is important in my journey or my clients or their journey in moving forward, such as a word like resilience or curiosity or forgiveness, and we have a conversation around a single word about moving forward and change. So that's what mine is. And you can find me on Facebook, Greg Beckett, Motivational Hypnotist. I didn't know I have so much stuff to say. And also hypnosisla.com. I'm in Los Angeles, in the middle of Hollywood, and do Zoom clients and all sorts of stuff, and in person. So.
Cool. Well, there you go. So there's Greg's details. That's where you can find him. He truly is a Hollywood-based hypnotist. I know because I've been and stopped at his house, swam in his pool, and eaten at his table. So I can truly tell you he is absolutely there. Thank you so much for joining us on Trancing in the Sheets. Don't forget that we are now also going to be on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, and lots of other cool places with all kinds of amazing and fun things happening. So don't forget to tune in, not only to Trancing in the Sheets and Greg's show, the Motivational Hypnotist, Time to Get Unstuck, but all the other amazing stuff too. So we'll see you next time. Take care.
Get ready.